Hello, this is an introduction to using arrays in C++. You can see I started with the Hello World program, and I'm going to change the body to do something a little different. First I'm going to create an array. Basically an array is just a list of things and it's stored in a single variable. So there's a little bit different syntax. This array is going to be an array of integers, so I declare int array, which is actually not allowed. You can't call it array, you have to call it something else. There's going to be 10 elements in the array, so now I'm giving it initial values using the curly bracket notation. And then, after I rename my array to something valid, I'm going to print out the first element of the array. So this array contains 10 numbers, 1 through 10. So when I print out the first number, it should be 1. Arrays always start at index 0. So you see the first element is 1. So the first element is at index 0, and the second element is at index 1, and so on. Okay, now I'm going to create a subprogram for printing out an array. That'll come in handy as we're manipulating the array just to see how it changes. So this is how you would pass an array as an argument to a function. You just add the little square brackets at the end. And the array is an array of integers, so it's int the array square brackets. And then I also need to include the length of the array because we don't know what that is. It has to be passed in. So I'll create a for loop, which is going to go from index 0 all the way to, in this case, it's going to go to 9. Because when we pass in our array, it's going to be of length 10, so the indexes go from 0 to 9. But we're going to use array length, a variable, so that this function will work for any length array. So I print out each element one at a time using a for loop, and then at the end I'm going to print out an end of line character. I'm just going to add a little bit of documentation. Put a space in between each character. And now let's print out the array that we declared in the main. Alright, it printed one element to each line, and we actually, I'm just going to print them all to the same line so we can see that it's a unit. 1 through 10, just like we initialized it. Alright, I'm going to show you how to erase an element from the array. Just for this example, we're going to choose element 3 to get rid of. So one way of doing this is to create a for loop. It's going to start at index 3, and it's going to copy the element at index 4 into index 3. and it's going to repeat that all the way to the end of the array. Notice I stopped my for loop at index 8 because I'm going to be accessing my array at I plus 1, and we don't want to go out of bounds. We'll see later why that's bad. Alright, and since we are erasing an element, we're going to change that to 9. You can see the number 4 has been removed. The number 4 was stored at index 3 before. Now I'm just going to change my program a little. I'm going to store the array length in a variable instead of using the number 10 all the time. So now our array actually still is of length 10, but we've kind of simulated erasing an element. So when you erase, okay, here's an example of going out of bounds. I changed it to 12, and we don't have 12 elements, so it just printed out some garbage. So the data structure that we initially created had the numbers 1 through 10, and then we copied over, starting from index 3, we copied over the next element over the previous one, and it kind of behaves like we erased the element there. But at the end of the array, there's actually 2 number 10s. So I just decreased the length of our array by 1 to make it look like we erased the element from the end as well. Now I'm going to show you how to reverse the order of the array and store it in a new variable. So I declare a new array, and this one is going to be of length 9. I'm going to show you what happens when you print out your array without actually initializing any of the values. Basically, you can't predict what's going to happen. It's just a bunch of random numbers. So it's always important to initialize your variables so that your programs will behave in some kind of predictable way. So I'm going to iterate from index 0 to index 9, or index 8, because our array is of length 9, so starting at 0, that's 9 elements. Alright, so all I did there was just copy the array over. If we want to do it in reverse order, we can start at the last element, which is array length minus 1, and then subtract I off each time. Now you can see the array has been reversed. It's just a little bit of math. Now we'll show you how to add up all the elements in the array. So I'm going to declare my sum and start it at 0. And then I'm going to iterate through the array and add each element to the sum. Then I'm going to print out the result. And you can see the sum is 51. Okay, so we've seen integer arrays, done a lot of operations with them, but you can actually declare an array of any kind of data type. So I'm going to create a new array of strings. This one contains 5 elements, and so I'm going to give it an initial value using the curly brace notation. And now I'm going to try to print it out using our print array function. Now the compiler has underlined string array in red, and that's because print array is expecting an array of type int, but we're giving it an array of strings. So we're going to have to create a new function for printing it out. So I'm going to copy and paste and just change the name to print string array and change the type of the array to string. And now we have a function that'll print string arrays. And there we go. Now I'll show you how to swap elements in an array. First you need to have something to temporarily hold a variable. So I'm going to swap element 4 and element 0. So first I'm going to store element 4 into the temporary variable. Then I'm going to copy element 0 into element 4. And then into element 0 I'm going to copy the temporary variable, which was the one that was element 4. And if I print this out, you can see that ketchup and happy were swapped. We saw this a minute ago where we printed something that was out of bounds and it printed garbage to the screen. But sometimes it's worse. Sometimes it can cause your program to just crash because it's trying to access some location of memory that it shouldn't have permission. There you go. It's a good old crash. So don't, or do, watch out for this. Make sure you're not trying to access elements that are out of bounds.